Trisha, you are a very welcomed guest on the Thyroid Fixer podcast. So I'm so happy to have you back on, and especially diving into the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is so needed by my patients and my audience alike. So I'm encouraging all of you to please listen. We're going to post this everywhere because this is kind of like a must listen podcast for every single person out there. Should you track your food? It's a big question on everyone's mind. And, I fully get it. We were talking before we started here that those suffering or recovered from an eating disorder, tracking might be a little bit triggering. So we're going to talk about that as well. But, if you're at that place, like so many people are right now, where you're doing all the things or you think you're doing all the things, and you're like, the weight just isn't budging. I don't know. I'm eating clean, air quotes being used there. I'm eating clean. I'm eating well. I cut out the sugar. I know I'm eating perfectly, and the weight just isn't coming off. So we're going to dive into this because, again, you're hearing me, right? This is a topic that you need to listen to, because if you're not in this position now, you might be in the future where you're really trying to do all the things and the weight isn't coming off. So Trisha, thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, and I so relate to this topic. Certainly because I was 50 pounds overweight and I was struggling with food and weight, and I was like perpetually dieting. So it's not like I was, hiding out in a dark theater eating bonbons. Like I was really doing my damnedest to try to lose weight and be good, quote, right? That's a diet concept. I'm going to be good.
Good.
So I was always doing that. And yet I felt frustrated as well. And I think that part of the problem, and I literally, to be honest, I was on Facebook in my own group of my clients last night with somebody that does that very same comment. She's like, well, I haven't lost any weight yet. She's in like week 3, right? Okay.
It's week 3, right?
Yeah, let's wait a little bit, be patient. So, but first of all, she did slip in her comment in the Facebook group. Her comment was, I just can't give up those sugary foods, And so I'm like, oh, well, there's a little clue. But the problem is, for us, because we've done so much, when I say us, I'm talking about emotional eaters. My jam is helping people with emotional eating, which a lot of people don't even understand that term, but it's really just, an emotional dependence on food, using food for emotional reasons.
Mhm.
And if you're like right now thinking, I don't do that, and you think you just like food, if you chronically struggle with food and weight, it's a good probability that you're an emotional eater. And I actually have a quiz, and we can put it in the show notes, Amy. I think it's a great thing to do. There's a quiz you can take on my website where you literally can find out if you're an emotional eater or literally possibly addicted to food. And
Mhm.
it's a spectrum. So my experience is it's a spectrum where and what determines where you end up on that spectrum, besides taking the quiz will tell you where you're on the spectrum and with a personalized score, but it's really 2 things that will qualify where you are in that spectrum. One is the level of control that you have. Like, can you, if you go on a cruise and you eat a lot of cheese, it's all prepaid, you eat a lot of cheese and wine, and then you come home and you 5 pounds heavier and you feel yucky. So then you course correct.
Mhm.
You start jogging more for a couple weeks, you cut out sweets, and boom, those 5 pounds are off. That's someone with a good amount of control and not too many consequences. So those are the 2 sort of qualifiers, control and consequences.
Okay.
But me, when I would go on a cruise, I'd gain at least 5 pounds because I'm like, I paid for this. I'm going to get my money's worth out of this,
Right.
out of this deal. And it's a buffet and all that. But when I came home and I was bummed out about not fitting into my jeans, it sent me down this spiral. Like, I'm like, screw it. Like, what's the point, right? I can't even go on a cruise and have fun. And then I go into this dark hole that could last several weeks, if not several months. And the 5 pounds could easily turn into 10 or 15 pounds.
Mhm.
So that's someone with not very much control. And if you do that long enough, the consequences will be there. Like, it's not only 15 pounds, it's also pre-diabetes. Then it turns into joint pain, gut issues, messed up thyroid, right?
Yep.
So it's just, I just want to say that because people should take the quiz and find out where they are. And knowing that you're an emotional eater is really helpful, because so many times we beat ourselves up for our lack of control, for our lack of willpower. We feel like we're losers. I mean, I always felt like I was such a loser. Like Susie and Janice could just eat a hot fudge sundae and that's all there is to it. And
Yep.
boom, they're on with their week. But it would, I couldn't do that without the chips and the French fries and, salty with the sweet. So it took me on this ride, but I was blamed myself. I'm like, what's wrong with me? There's something so messed up. But I didn't know as an emotional eater. And so with that information, or even food addict, with that information, you approach it from a different standpoint. The diet doesn't work. Like following just the food plan isn't enough, and we just beat ourselves up too much saying, oh, there's something so inherently wrong with me. No, if you're an emotional eater, it just means the food plan's not enough. You need to address your emotions. You need to have ways to lower your stress. And so I just say all that. I'll get back to your question, but I just want to say that because people don't always know what emotional eating is. If you find yourself nibbling, at night, like you were done with dinner, but then you're not really done and you want more food and you're sitting in front of the TV, and one bowl of ice cream turns into 2 or 3, or one bowl of cereal turns into 2 or 3, or the entire box, and you have that binging tendency, or if you think about food 24/7, or if you just can't lose that extra weight, it could be an emotional eating issue. So back to your question about the whole tracking. And I think there's a good chance if we are an emotional eater, we are doing a lot of unconscious eating. And what I mean by that is we don't even realize we're doing it.
Yep.
We just don't realize we're doing it. It's just such a habit, and habit is a big part of it. Is like we've been doing this, we've been in training for this for a long time, and I did this all the time. Like if there's candy in a bowl, my hand was in that bowl. I had to have some. If there's a bowl of Hershey's Kisses, you can bet I had to have some of those Hershey's Kisses, and then I had to have more. And snacking between meals, coming home from work, going straight to the kitchen, finding something to snack on before dinner. I mean, just all these times, you can't do that long hour and a half drive home from work without having something in the, passenger seat next to you, you could just keep munching on. This is all unconscious ways that we get fat, frankly. We just realize we're doing it. And snacky foods are not usually, kale and celery sticks. Like it's just not what we want to snack on.
Yeah. No,
We
they're
don't
not.
know. It's sugar, it's processed carbs, it's crunchy, salty, processed, sugary, it's just the yummy snacky foods, but those are the ones that do cause us to gain weight so easily. So the unconscious eating is a problem. And you may be thinking, God, I'm doing everything, like you always hear, Dr. Amy, like I'm doing everything, but we're not realizing that we are eating those sugary foods. Just like my client who's like, oh, it's those sugary foods I can't let go of. Those cost us a lot because they're high calorie foods. And then sugar is highly addictive. And if you eat sugar, it's so easy to get hooked on it where you just want more. One is never enough, and so the tracking, I don't think is a terrible thing. It's just, and the reason why it's not terrible is because it can help you be accountable.
Right.
It can help you wake up. If you write down what you eat, even for 3 days, you might have some discoveries like, wow, like I didn't realize how much snacking I do. I recommend something to my clients called 3-meal magic, which is eating 3 meals with nothing in between. And that wakes people up because once you start, like you are not eating in between meals, all of a sudden you realize you're catching yourself like about to go to the refrigerator, open the door and find out what you can eat, and so and then you're like, oh my God, like I didn't realize I did that. Like it's so funny how we can not know, but unless you're trying to not do that, you won't realize you have been doing that. So
well, let's pause on that idea,
okay,
because I want to dive deeper into the 3
Yeah.
because there's so much more to it. And back to the mindless eating, I would even argue that like in my house, I don't have a ton of sugary stuff. I mean, Well, I have two arguments here to make, and then I'll let you comment on it. I don't have a lot of sugary stuff, but I have some because my husband will eat it. So he has his cereal, Honey Nut Cheerios. Normally, I wouldn't touch it, but I'll circle back to it. I have my bag of dark chocolate chips that I like to put into my protein pancakes. Do I grab handfuls sometimes? Yes. So my choices are pretty narrow of what I can snack on, but I'll also argue that you can snack your way to fat on healthy stuff too if you're consuming it all the time. So every time
Yeah.
even people that are working from home, every time I leave my office and go to the kitchen, I'm like this in the refrigerator, opening it, seeing, and I'm not even hungry. It's just a
Yeah.
habit that I'm going to
Yeah.
grab something. Now, piggybacking off what I just said, there also is a rule of nutrition that is if it's in your house, you will eventually eat it. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've heard from women, oh, it's for the kids, it's for the grandkids,
Right. Yeah.
it's for the
Don't
husband.
stop.
Bullshit. You
Stop
are going to
blaming
eat
them.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are going to eat it. So, yes, I mean, have there been times where I've grabbed the handful of Honey Nut Cheerios? Yes, because I'm just like, you move into screw it. I'm tired of all this healthy stuff. I just want something sugary and what's good for me, and I deserve it because I've been working
Yeah.
hard all day. And so,
Yep.
yeah, you do grab it. And do I think about that at the end of the day? Like, if you ask me, Amy, what'd you eat today? I wouldn't tell you the Honey Nut Cheerios, not because I'm embarrassed or trying to admit it, because I don't remember
You don't
doing it.
remember. It's just so quick and easy. I
Right.
used to think, Amy, we were laughing about this, but I used to think if I ate crappy food on the airplane, it didn't count because I was in the air.
Yes.
Like,
And it's like breaking a cookie and the calories falling out. Same thing. Same thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny, but we do lie to ourselves. I mean,
We do.
rationalization is a big part of this problem, okay? Is that we rationalize. So we tell ourselves stories, and we're like, oh no, like I love it how you said the reward. Like I call it the I deserve it binge. Like I deserve this. Like I've worked so hard and we use food as a reward so often. And there are other things we could use as a reward, but we use that as a rationalization for eating, things that we know aren't going to serve our highest and best good. And I have to address that because one of the reasons why we do go into the spin of storytelling and rationalizing and saying, well, this is going to be okay because A, B, and C is because deep down we actually feel like we need it.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
people, when we feel like it's not that we rationalize it out of thin air, we feel like we really have to have a fix, and where does that come from? Well, as an emotional eater, it comes from buried emotions. It comes from stress.
Mhm.
It comes from the habit, like we talked about the habit. And so you don't think of yourselves as needing this, like you don't really need Hershey's Kisses, but at a deeper level where we're not always aware, the unconscious level, food has served us on an emotional level often since we were kids. I mean, I had stuff going on as a kid that I didn't talk to about anybody. I should have been talking to somebody about, but I didn't know who to talk to.
Right.
And so food was it for me. Like I had to stuff it or I don't know what I was going to do. I was alone and afraid and I stuffed those feelings and those experiences, that a kid shouldn't have. And it at the time saved me. Food saves us at those times as kids where you don't have a lot of options. I mean, nobody deals with their feelings,
Right.
So I use food. So what happens is I began to use food to help me get through hard times, and then it became this really ugly habit that I didn't need as an adult. I mean, I wasn't in danger as an adult anymore,
Yeah.
but I had ingrained this habit now out of practice to where food saved me, from uncomfortable emotions.
Mhm.
And so what happens is it becomes this habit that we just believe food is there for us. Like food is our friend, food is to be depended on, food will, and on a very subconscious level, food is saving our lives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
And
sounds
it
so
is.
crazy, but it's deep down.
Right. And we do need it, but I think people think that they need food more than they actually do. I mean, technically, you're not going to die without food. You have enough food, i.e., fat on your body, to live for quite some time without access to food. I mean, we can't live long without water, but we can live without food. So, despite what your body might be screaming at you, give me food. It has nothing to do with an actual need. And Trisha, isn't there the dopamine connection too, that sugary foods like chocolate actually do provide that hit of dopamine, which is a feel good hormone. So people use it to
Yes.
almost self-soothe, right?
Well, totally. And if anybody is questioning about this need thing, think of your absolute favorite food and then think of not having it anymore. What
Right.
happens inside of you? Like, what's going on right now?
A lot of
What's going
anxiety.
on?
What do you
Yes,
mean?
like
Yeah.
some panic, some anxiety, some like you might like hate me right now. Like it's like we're threatened.
Right. It's a
That's
question.
what we're talking about. Like that there is some real emotional dependence here because clearly we don't need those foods, those snacky foods, those entertaining foods, the comfort foods. We don't need them at all. But on an emotional level, we feel like we do,
Yeah.
because they are filling a hole.
Yeah.
They're filling an emotional need for us. I mean, I do this thing called the Quit Sugar Challenge, a 5-day challenge, and people, I had to add mindset calls to
Mhm.
that event because people were so freaked out. I mean, on paper, it's like, of course I should quit sugar. Of course there are no redeeming qualities to sugar,
Right.
but don't take my sugar away from me. Like, don't like the no, like how would I live? Like what actually comes across our lips sometimes is how would I get by? Like, how
Mhm.
would I get by? How would I live? Like, what will make me happy? Like, it's the only thing that makes me happy. It's my happy place.
Right.
Well, isn't that sad? Okay. So if it's your happy place, it means we got to do some work. Like if that's the thing that makes you happy in your life, and no judgment. I get it. I've been there, but at the same time, it means there is something about your life that need some work. You have to
Right.
address that. But we use food so we don't have to address it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think so many people get into a mode as well when they're on, let's say, a weight loss journey. They've decided this is it. I'm going to take control of this, buckle down. When you see something not working, you go into screw it syndrome, is what I call it. So you go, well, screw it. What I'm eating isn't producing the results that I want. So I might as well just have the pizza, just grab the Snickers. And it's number one, yeah, there could be something going on with your thyroid, with your hormones, with something, biological that you need to address to allow your body to give you that reward for eating the way that you should, for consuming, we won't even call it good eating, for consuming healthy, clean foods that your body loves that are not processed and man-made. Because we all know, and we can all say here, no matter what macronutrient count you believe in, whether it's keto, carnivore, or balanced, Mediterranean, whatever, consuming real foods, not in a box or a can, is going to benefit you, right? You can't argue that. Boom, done.
Right.
So let's say they're doing that and they're not seeing the results. There could be something biological going on, or there could be something that, comes back to what we're saying. Maybe you're consuming too much, even too much of the good. So the last thing we want you to do is go, screw it, just bring on the crap. Like, that's not going to get you any further. I mean, it will set you back for sure. Even if you don't see an increase on the scale, there's detriment going on inside of your body that can have long-term consequences. So I think the screw it syndrome is also another mindset that people get into.
Yes, and I have to say, typically that mindset comes because it comes after the diet stops working. So, um, we all have new diet syndrome. Like you start a new plan. It doesn't even have to be a real diet, but your doctor gives you a plan. Like eat this and your gut will heal. Eat this and you'll overcome autoimmunity. But the thing is, like at first, we're all excited about the new diet. It's just like the new exercise plan or the new gym membership. So we're all like, woohoo, I'm doing it,
Right.
looking good, feeling good, woohoo, top of the world. But then 2 weeks later, it gets really hard.
Mhm.
And then we're not so happy. We're like, like it's drudgery. We're just trudging through it, wishing it could end. And that's the problem with diets, is they do end. You go on a diet, you have to come off a diet,
Mhm.
and it's not sustainable. And so my experience is we get into that screw it mentality at the point where it gets hard. Not when it's our new plan, but when it gets hard. And the reason why it gets hard in my experience is because we're not, the emotions that food was anesthetizing, the stress that food was supporting us through isn't there. I
Right.
say it's excess food, obviously we have to eat, but I'm just saying the fun foods are gone when you're on a diet, and then life gets dull, and then the diet gets hard. And so to me, that's again evidence that we have to go deeper on this,
Yeah.
because a diet isn't sustainable. 98% of all diets fail, statistically speaking, which is an abysmal statistic. Nobody would put money behind that. If
Right.
that was your investment odds, in
Right.
a new investment, you'd say, I'm going to pass.
Yeah.
Just abysmal odds. So
Very.
that's why we have to deal with like find new ways to deal with our emotions, find new ways to alleviate stress, find new ways to say no to stressful situations. Because emotional eaters, people who struggle chronically with food and weight, are chronic people pleasers. Okay, I have something in my book called The Anatomy of the Emotional Eater, which is typical, like very common personality traits that we have. And
Mhm.
this is what creates our problem, not the food. Food's a symptom, right? Food's a symptom. Wanting yummy, snacky, sugary foods is a symptom. But life getting hard, where we need the entertainment and the anesthetic of food, that's where we got to put the spotlight. And the thing is, we can lower stress so much more easier if we look at how we're living. And typically, as emotional eaters, we're doing way too much.
Yeah.
We're doing too much. We're saying yes to too many things. We want validation, so we want to be superwoman, and we're like, I'll do it. Give me the project, I'll do it. But it comes at a high price, which is we're stressed out, and then we're stress eating.
Right.
So this is some of the life stuff that makes food a lot more attractive and makes it harder to say no to, and hence we get into that screw it syndrome. Like, I can't live at this level of stress and chaos.
Mhm.
I can't live at this level of dissatisfaction in my relationship, in my job, right? In my relationship with my kids, whatever it is, all God's children got problems. Like,
Yep.
it happens. But if we don't deal with that stuff, then it becomes impossible to live without those foods that give us comfort.
It does. It does. Okay, those are all great points. I love that. I love your take and your advice on that. So now let's go back to that 3 meals a day, because I think that combines perfectly with tracking. When you only have to track 3 times in a day, it makes it a lot easier, because
Yeah.
now you, like Trisha was saying earlier, now you don't have those snacks, which I can't stand. The snack every 2 hours to keep your metabolism up. That is
Oh my
so
God.
1995, and
Exactly.
it's out. Like, we've debunked it. I know, you probably still have some bodybuilders that do it just to get their protein intake in. But when you're eating that often, every time you eat, from a biological standpoint, physiological standpoint, every time you eat, your pancreas is secreting insulin. And that insulin goes out. And that's a very fast way to become insulin resistant. It's a great way to just keep bumping your blood sugar up, so that you're going to crave more and more and more, especially if those snacks are sugary, grabbing handfuls of Honey Nut Cheerios kind of thing. So talk to me more about eating 3 times a day.
Yeah, so I love it because, I mean, and again, I'm the guinea pig here. So this everything I teach comes from my own personal experience of having been 50 pounds overweight, totally out of control, binge eater,
Mhm.
sugar addict, okay, carb addict. So the reason why I love 3 meals with nothing in between is, first of all, it can be a game changer alone. Like, alone, that can be a drastic shift in how you are. And for my clients, it is like they've been eating perpetually, and so when you just keep it to 3 meals, it wakes you up, because all of a sudden you're not eating in between meals. When I go to Trader Joe's and they're cooking up something yummy, I'm like, it's not my food. Like, that's not my food. I'm shopping right now. I'm not eating, and it's not mealtime. And so it
Mhm.
it sort of helps me reprogram my brain. If it's not mealtime, it's not my food. Period. End of story.
I
So
love that.
it's clear, it's clear, and it helps with the self-delusion, right? The self-rationalizing thoughts of, oh no, I can have this because I worked out, or I can have this because I'm going through something hard, or I just, finished a project. It like takes all that off the table. Like, no, if it's not a meal, it's not mealtime, it's not your food. And it also, three meal magic, I find to be like, some of my clients at first are like, oh my God, this is triggering, it's like diet mentality. And it's really not, first of all, because you can't just do that. Like, you have to put legs under it with self-care, it's ways, again, to bring down that stress. You have to change your life, right? If nothing changes, nothing changes. You won't be able to do three meal magic any more than you could do a diet.
Right.
Okay. So you gotta do more than that. But it does clean up your food. It does make you aware of how many times you're going to the refrigerator, just bored, looking for recreational food. And it does, to me, it's kind and compassionate to your body, because we've done so many crazy fad diets. We've done so much, just so many crazy things with food, both in overeating and then trying to overcome, like try to lose weight,
Yep.
drastic machinations, including, maiming your body with surgery, like reworking your plumbing. I mean, it's like we've done some very drastic things to our bodies. So it's sort of a way of coming home and learning how to treat your body with love and care. And my body knows it will get fed. Like, I
Mhm.
don't starve myself. I don't do, and I love, the idea of intermittent fasting. I love at least putting, 12 hours between my dinner and my breakfast. So that's a little bit of IF that I do,
Yep.
is just, stop eating at 7 and don't eat breakfast till 7 in the morning. But other than that, I personally, I don't like to go too long without eating. I don't like the 60, hour window, because my body's it just needs to settle down. My nervous system needs to settle down.
Mm.
And I find that when I mean, you wouldn't say to your kid, your 5-year-old daughter, hey, why don't you skip a meal here and there? You're gonna slim down.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you wouldn't at all. No.
but we'll do that to ourselves all day long, which is self-abusive. Like, no, like, let's treat our bodies with love and care the way we would our 5-year-old daughter. Like, I like to say that because it sort of makes it clear, like, what are we doing? What are we
Mhm.
doing? And are we being kind and loving? So when my body knows, without a doubt, I will feed it on a regular schedule. And I will feed it, if you're not snacking, the foods you're likely going to eat during that meal, unless you're trying to hack the system and you just give yourself a plate full of Oreos, which is ridiculous, but it's been known to be done. She said 3 meals. Well, she said put on a plate. Well, here's my plate of cookies.
I mean, it sounds good. I'm all in for that, but yeah.
So, I mean, the point is, likely, if you're eating meals, you're going to eat real food. You're going to eat a real breakfast, you're going to eat a real lunch, and eat a real dinner. And that's the idea, obviously, is those meals. They don't need to be diet meals. They just need to be healthy, nutritious meals, good carbs, good fats, good proteins. And so, when you do that, it's sort of an amends to our bodies for the decades of abuse and craziness. And I will always, I don't care what's going on in my life. I just focus on the 3 meals. If I'm traveling, I think ahead. Where am I going to get my meal? Can I get a good salad at the Houston airport? Probably. Okay, then I won't pack a salad.
Mhm.
And nowadays airports do a lot better, or at least the major airports, they do a lot better with, giving you salad options. But the point is, I'm making amends to my body with the 3 meals, because my body is like a little girl. She knows she's going to get taken care of. She knows she's going to get fed. She knows I didn't forget about her. So I don't
Mhm.
forget to eat,
Right.
because that's triggering.
Right.
I mean, the fastest way to overeat is to undereat.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
I love it. And it's regular. I've been doing it for years. It works for me. I do have to plan to make sure it happens. I have to have food in the fridge, to make sure when it's mealtime, I have something to eat. And that's good too. Because if we fail to plan, we plan to fail.
We do. We absolutely do. And these days, I mean, it is almost too easy to eat healthy. So when people say like I call bullshit on that, because
Yeah.
you can stop at a Chipotle and you can get a bowl filled with protein and real food like black
Yeah.
beans and whatever. If you're keeping your carbs low, avoid the rice, for God's sake. Put it on a bed of lettuce. I don't know. But
Yeah.
there's enough places out there these days, fast food included, that you really can eat, even if it's somewhat healthy. I kind
Yeah.
of trust Chipotle a little bit more for their protein source than I would like McDonald's, but you can still make it work for you. And then there's meals, or there's factor meals that you can do, low carb keto. There's, the healthy, whatever, apron, blue apron, healthy things.
Yeah.
It's just easy. It's easy these days. There's no excuse as to why you can't have 3 square meals a day. And I'm with you, Trisha, on the fasting. I mean, that could be a whole other episode of women fasting and when you should and when you shouldn't. But if you have an eating disorder, if you have cortisol problems, if you have hypothyroidism, you probably shouldn't do these long fasts. And if you're a woman, if you're only eating once or twice a day, there is no way in hell that you're going to get in the protein that you need to keep your lean, sexy muscle, to grow your hair, to have beautiful skin and nails. No way.
Yeah.
So fasting really has a lot of downsides to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, especially for people who have been chronically dieting, it's just we need to just settle down, come home to ourselves and
Mhm.
learn how to treat our bodies with love and care.
Our moms are right. 3 squares a day.
Yeah,
3
it's like
squares a
let's
day.
get back to that.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. The old school way of thinking. And, even the meat and potatoes meal, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. It was real food.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was actually real food.
It beats a lot of the alternatives these days.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I think this is fantastic advice. And I would encourage everyone to take your quiz, because even as you were talking, Trisha, I was remembering the days of when I was competing. And there was such, restriction that it created an emotional eating pattern in me, to where when I, let's say, was off season, i.e., not in a crazy diet mode, I would binge, because I would think, when am I going to have to restrict again? When can I not have this food? I'm going to get it all in. I'm going to get it all in. And then I would go into restriction mode where, until I could have a cheat day. And then that cheat day was like, oh my God, I only have one day. Let's get it all in, to the point of getting sick. And then
Oh
you go into
god.
restriction mode again. So that definitely created, I mean, it took a long time. For the first time, well, I've been able to do this maybe 2 or 3 times now recently in the last few years. I can keep a jar of peanut butter in the house longer than 1 to 2 days. And that's a huge
Yay.
feat for me, because peanut
Yes.
butter is very triggering. It's sweet and it's salty at the same time. And I would down that tablespoon. You want to talk about mindless eating? Tablespoon after tablespoon, to where I would look and go, where, how? I just bought this yesterday and it's half gone and I don't remember eating it. It was
Mm.
so mindless. So yes, that created in me that emotional eating pattern,
Yeah.
the binge restrict.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage everyone to take the emotional eating quiz, because you don't know what you don't know until it's right in your face. And then it's like, okay, maybe this is something I need to address.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So I love you. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Once again, you have such great experience. You have great programs that I encourage everyone to check out. So tell people where they can find you. We'll put it in the show notes as well, along with a quiz.
Yeah, healyourhunger.com. And the quiz is right there on the homepage, but that's the best place to find me. I'm also on Instagram at Tricia Nelson _ at the end of Nelson.
Beautiful. We'll put it all down there. You don't even have to
Okay,
remember it.
awesome.
Thank you, Trisha, once again.
Thank you. Love you so much, girl.